In the days after the debate and through all of the fallout and calls for the president to step aside, there is one senator who has stood firmly behind President Biden. And it seems like the president noticed.
I'm not going to make this a speech. I promise, John. By the way, I got John Fetterman. I don't need much else.
Now I am about to point to the only person that's ever kicked Trump's ass in an election right now. I hope the media is hearing that. Remind you that. Humiliated Trump, broke him, and he had to lie about it.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Senator, thank you so much for joining me this evening. So you are someone, we just showed a bunch of it there. You have staunchly defended the president. You said he had a great day yesterday. You said that earlier today. He came out swinging this morning with a letter. He made an appearance on Morning Joe. He's made it very clear he's not leaving. But since then, several of your Senate colleagues have come out with statements. They've talked about concerns their constituents have expressed. They've said the president needs to prove he's up for it, including two who are facing a tough re-election fight. And you've been through that before. What does the president need to do to keep others from jumping ship, other colleagues of yours?
Well, I mean, it cracks me up. It's like if no one's run for president, let alone won and has been the president giving advice, that's kind of a strange place to sit there. I mean, it's like, I'm going to tell Tom Brady, oh, you really need to hold harder in the pocket or something. I mean, it's strange. And it's bizarre when people are saying, well, he's the best president in my lifetime. But I mean, like it should stop right after he's the best president of your lifetime. And he had a rough debate. We all know that. And we're still talking about that. And I'm not really think it's really helpful. That's going to be our guy. That's my guy. That's our president. And I like to keep pointing out again and again, there's only one man or a person in America that's beat Trump in an election, and that's Joe Biden. And my money is going to be on the guy that kicked his ass in 2022, and he's going to win again.
Well, Senator, I mean, they're not just speaking from their own point of view. They're talking about what they've heard from constituents. And these are people who represent a range of states, including states that will be in play, right, coming up this election. And they do say they love Joe Biden, but they're not questioning his record. They're questioning whether he can beat Donald Trump. So I guess it's how does he bring them back to the fold? Does he need to bring them back to the fold? Or are you telling me you don't think that matters?
I mean, he's going to keep running the kind of campaign that he did. My colleague just said unscripted. It's like, well, we did a whole day of it yesterday of unscripted, and it was a great day for the president as well. The rooms were packed. People were enthusiastic. They were thirsty to have their selfie taken with the president, back and forth. And like I said, that was Joe Biden right there. And that's the kind of president that I know, and that's one I'm proud to stand with throughout all of this thing. Polls are going to be up, polls are going to be down. Some people are going to have bad days or good days. But Joe Biden's never going to bribe a porn star and get convicted and is a felon for that. And it's really strange when you have Project 2025, and that's Trump's, that's his plan. And why people are more worried about what time Joe Biden might go to bed or these other things when it's really we need to get serious and realize what's here and what's really on here. And again, some of these Democrats, even before this debate, were willing to walk away from him or to abandon Biden or whatever. And it's like, well, hey, that worked out great back in 2000. And we got with 2 terms of Bush. And we threw their votes away with Jill Stein in 2016. And of course, that brought Trump here. So the next time you try to send a message, maybe you're going to send Trump back to the White House.
Well, Project 2025, we've talked a lot about that. We'll talk about it more later in the show. I think it's exactly why people are so concerned, because it's so existential to take out Trump. So let me ask you about Pennsylvania. You may not love this, but people are going to be all over Pennsylvania over the next couple of months, including the media and lots of candidates. And another one of your colleagues facing a tough re-election, I mean, he is running ahead of his opponent, Dave McCormick, but it's Bob Casey. And I want to ask you if you have any concern that President Biden being at the top of the ticket will bring Bob Casey down.
Absolutely not. You know what? I was in cycle in 22, and it was supposed to be a bloodbath for Democrats. And well, Biden, I don't know how popular it is I don't know if you can be seen or what. I was proud to campaign with him. And, you know, and the polls had me going to down 2 points and lose. And we actually won by 5 points. And that's right. I'm right here having this conversation. And I stood with him in my cycle, and I'm definitely going to stand with him in his cycle. And Bob Casey is going to beat that guy from Connecticut. And we actually have a great team on ours running, whether that's in Montana or whether that's in Ohio, whether that is in Nevada, all of these. And you know, Carrie Lake, I mean, she's a miracle. I mean, she's like a Democratic asset. You know, I think she's everyone's favorite. So I have a good chance of running the table, and Joe Biden's on the top. And it's strange why Republicans seem to embrace that a felon is at the top of their ticket, and they're proud of that, and they dress like him and they show up. And now we just have all kinds of anxiety, and we say things and wonder, well, Joe Biden going to be, you know, our candidate? It's like this. We should be having that conversation at this point. You know, it's like Joe Biden is our guy, and if anyone was better, it's like, you know, they had their chance. You know, call, you know, fair fight. The only guy that did that was the gelato guy, and that didn't didn't go well for him. And it's like, where were they? Anyone that thinks they're, you know, they could have brought their bad self into the primary, but they didn't do that. And I don't think it's reasonable to turn their back on a great president after a rough debate.
Let's talk about a little bit more about Pennsylvania, because this is why it's so important to talk to you. You know Pennsylvania incredibly well. As you said, you want to race. People didn't say you were going to win, and here you are. You're a senator. So there's a Bloomberg poll, Morning Consult poll released this weekend that shows Donald Trump has a 7-point lead over Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. It's pretty consistent with a lot of the polling. Now, you may tell me, and I agree with you, polls are imperfect. They're testing a moment in time and betting on the electorate. But talk to me about what you're seeing on the ground. Is it inconsistent with that polling? You're telling me it's completely wrong. Do you worry that the debate and other things are going to impact it? Or what's your take on the ground?
Yeah, that's not a 7-point race. It's going to be close. I've been saying the same thing since 2016. I said, you know, we can't play around. This is going to be close in 2016, and that's what happened. And I've been saying that it's going to be very close in 2020, and that's exactly what it was when polls had Biden up 5 points in Pennsylvania. And it's like, if you look at the crowds and you see that energy, this is not a 5-point race. And now in 2024, it's going to be close again. It always is, no matter who's in this race. And Joe Biden beat him, and soundly as well. And now, if we're still arguing about this, I don't really understand that. And if there's somebody else that is to be that person, then put their names in it right now. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, that's what I'm suggesting. It's like, if somebody thinks that they can beat Trump, put their hat in the ring, and then everybody can react on that, instead of we can talk about this for another month.
You spent the day with him yesterday. You also campaigned with him, as you said, 2 years ago. What should people? There's a lot of talk out there that he's dramatically changed. They're obviously watching the debate. I mean, what did you notice about the day yesterday versus the day 2 years ago? Again, it's only 2 days and moments of time, but you spent time with him on both occasions.
Again, he had a perfect day with me. You know, I don't know if there's any other people on your show around that spent their entire day with Joe Biden, but I did. And he had multiple events, and they were all great. And he was interacting in a very easy and friendly kind of a way, not unscripted kind of a way, and all of that. Again, that was Joe Biden there. I don't know why people aren't talking about that. So it really have to come back to this idea. It's like, who this is going to be, who is the one that it's like that person can put their name in the ring right now. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about this for the next month.
I imagine, and I think this is pretty personal for you. I mean, that you can relate to some of this on a personal level. You've talked about this a bit. You, of course, suffered a stroke. You went on to win. You were obviously much younger than the president, but you do know what it's like to be doing a job capably and still facing questions about your abilities. Tell me about how frustrated you have felt on a personal level to just watch this over the last week and a half.
Well, I mean, it's personal in a way, because Joe Biden stood with me. during my cycle, and I'm going to stand with him. And it's like, I mean, this is a great president. And he, like, look about where we were 4 years ago. We were all going to be doing Zoom, not just this interview, everything, visiting with grandparents and visiting with anybody on Zoom, and people are hoarding toilet paper and things. Now, who wants that? Who wants to go back and say, all those great days, there? Who wants that kind of chaos and that kind of a thing? And, everybody and the Democrats can agree Joe Biden is a great president, and he's done an incredible kind of a record. There shouldn't be a but. I mean, he won the primary. There were Democrats that had the other chance to challenge him back then, and I don't think that was that time. And just like the president said, it's like, hey, this needs to end, and we need to go forward. Or if there are people in our party that thinks, hey, I'm the one that can beat Trump, put your name out. I want to hear from him. It's like, let's go.
Well, the president put that challenge out this morning. We'll see what happens. I don't think anybody will do that unless he were to decide he didn't want to run. Senator John Fetterman, thank you always for being candid. I'm just going to go on record. I hope you always wear hoodies. Don't let anyone change you. Thanks for being on with me tonight. I appreciate it. Joining me now is Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. So, Senator, you have raised a point that a lot of people have raised, is that you'd like to see you love the president. You literally said that yesterday. Yes. I just said that. But you'd like to see him out there doing more town hall meetings, more events. I think what's hard is how do you measure success? I mean, we're on a short timeline here. The clock is ticking. What are you looking for over the next couple of days? How will you look at it on Friday and say, oh, OK, I can be with him. My constituents can be with him. Yeah, listen, subtlety does not sell in politics today. My position is pretty simple. I support Joe Biden. He's my president. I've never seen a more effective commander in chief than Joe Biden. I've worked with him intimately. As you know, we passed the first anti-gun violence bill in 30 years that is literally saving thousands of lives as we speak, as crime plummets in this nation. That would have not happened without Joe Biden's detailed daily intervention in those negotiations. So I know what Joe Biden can do. I know how successful he has been for the American people. I support him in this election. But it is just true that people have questions, having watched his performance on Thursday. And it is just also true that people want to be with him. They want to support him, but they want to see him out in settings that show that he is still the old Joe Biden, as he says he is. So what I've suggested is that the president, be in these unscripted settings this week. In part, he did that this morning in the call-in to Did you like the tone of that?
Yes, I think we need to see more of that. I think that's a good start. I also think it's okay for him to be defiant and angry right now. If he really believes in himself and his ability to beat Donald Trump, then he should be angry and upset at what has happened over the course of the last week. But you are also right that he's got to do more than just show that anger about the circumstances. He's got to show his ability to deliver and assure voters that the performance on Thursday was an anomaly. And I think he can do that this week. And I said the clock is ticking yesterday because we need to get beyond this as a party. We need to get back to the issue at hand, which is a contrast between a decent, honorable man, Joe Biden, and a corrupt felon who pathologically lies and wants to transition our democracy to an autocracy, Donald Trump. That has to be the contrast, and I hope that that's the contrast next week.
So you and I both know well the political cycles. You better. You've been elected to the Senate. I have not. But the end of this week, Donald Trump could pick a running mate. The Republican convention is next week. I mean, does this need to be decided by the end of this week?
I mean, listen, I think we would be very well served by having a decision. And I think President Biden can do things this week to reinstill people's faith in him so that by next week we are back to talking about this contrast. I also think this is an opportunity for a comeback story, and the press and the media in this country loves nothing better than a comeback story. President Biden was down on Thursday night and on Friday morning. And if he comes back and shows this week that he's got the ability to correct from that performance, I frankly think that that's a pretty important and pretty compelling narrative as we head into the summer and the fall. But again, I think it's incumbent upon the president and his team to do the kind of things they did this morning. Get out there, put the president in settings that show Thursday night was an anomaly.
Sounds like you would like to be going into the Republican convention with knowledge of a confidence in who the nominee is going to be.
Because the Republican convention is going to be an advertisement for the most unpopular agenda that any major party has ever run on in the history of the country. They have this document, Project 2025, in which they have
Trump pretends he has nothing to do with, which is ludicrous. But
right. His future cabinet members wrote the document.
Future chief of staff, maybe.
Exactly. And it is unbelievable that Trump and his acolytes have the gall to put down on paper their plan to end American democracy, to end a woman's right to choose everywhere in this country, to single out and persecute gay people and gay kids in this country. That's what we should be talking about next week, which is why I hope the president continues what he started this morning and answers people's questions so that next week we can be talking about this incredibly bright line contrast.
Let me ask you about one piece that's going to impact you a great deal, which is who controls the Senate next year. And there were a number of your colleagues who came out and said that their constituents had expressed questions, that the president needed to do more to prove he was up to the job. One of them is Democrat Jon Tester, who's, of course, in a very close race. And he said President Biden has got to prove to the American people, including me, that he's up for the job for another 4 years. I mean, you've run close races before. How much do the feelings and views of vulnerable senators and vulnerable members of Congress, how much should that weigh in what happens moving forward?
Well, listen, ultimately, I think if President Biden believes that he can do this job and he convinces the voters across this country that he can do the job, then he has met the moment. I'm not saying that John and Sherrod's comments aren't irrelevant, but ultimately this has got to be about what the president believes he can do, and it's got to be about what the broad American electorate believes the president is capable of. John Tester is an independent voice. He's a Democrat, but he just does what's right for
Well, Sherrod Brown expressed
Montana.
Something similar. Senator Brown did.
Yeah, I think you'll continue to see senators like John Tester, who have always been independent voices, agreeing with the president many times and disagreeing with the president many times. That's just who John Tester is. That's frankly who Sherrod Brown is. That's who Bob Casey is. I think that'll continue to be what you hear from them from now until the election.
So how does this conclude? I mean, one of your colleagues, my now home senator, even though you were once my senator, Senator Mark Warner, was going to call together a meeting. That was canceled. Does there need to be a meeting where all the senators agree on the path forward? Does that matter? Like, how do we end whatever the path is going to be here?
Yeah, I suggested that one of the ways we end this is for the president to be in forums this week in which he answers those questions. I think the sooner that the president does that, and again, I think he started doing that today, the quicker that we can come to a collective decision that not everyone will agree with, but a broad cross-section of Democrats will agree with, that the president is ready to carry this election forward. So I think that this can end more quickly if the president takes some chances and gets into more unscripted settings this week.
Senator Chris Murphy, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me on set tonight. I really appreciate it. And coming up, Democrats are hammering Donald Trump's Project 2025 agenda. The question is, are voters listening?
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.